Welcome inside the Vegas Huddle here at the Den at FOX5 Studios. I'm so honored to welcome on another great guest. You know, Spencer Haywood the first time around was amazing, but now having Mike Pritchard, a former NFL player, a broadcaster for over 17 years, and now also a Vegas local, a guy who grew up here in town, went to Rancho. It's a pleasure to have you on the pod. How are you?
It's all mine. I'm great. Great to be here. Excited to be with you.
You know, the first time we met was at Warren Moon's Pro Bowl event at Lowry's. Is that how you say it?
Lowry's. I think it's Lowry's.
Prime rib.
Yeah,
You
right.
got to say prime rib when you say Lowry's.
I've always said Lowry's.
Okay. And however Mike Pritchard says it is how I want to say it. Mike, I mean, you know, there's so much to talk to you about. I think the most interesting place to start with you is actually growing up here, going to Rancho High School, and now being, you know, a broadcaster working within the field here, the growth of this city, to see how this city has become a sports-centric town. When you were growing up here, could you ever imagine we would have what we have today?
Never. Not even close to what we have today. I mean, it's really incredible. You think about Vegas, and people still refer to Vegas as a town, but it's a city. It's a metropolis, really, at this point. When I was growing up here, we had 200,000 people, 9 high schools. Everybody knew everybody. Played against Lorenzo Fertitta, for instance, in high school, right?
Wow.
And Marty Cordova, and Nick Bell, and all these other guys around the city. But we all grew up together. We all knew each other from Little League football all the way through high school. Now to see Vegas turn into what it's turned into with the Raiders here, with the Knights here, and all the rumors you hear about other professional sport franchises coming to Vegas, it's highly exciting. I mean, we truly are the sports and entertainment capital of the world now. Before, clearly, the entertainment capital of the world, but now you have to throw in sports because everybody wants to come to Vegas right now.
You know, and I think so much, of course, being the host of a show called Betting Across America,
Right.
a lot of the reason for this transformation is because of how gambling is infused in, you know, our broadcasts now. Before, you never see on the NFL, you know, a DraftKings commercial or some sort of gambling. Now, having that infused into the climate and the landscape of professional sports and how fans enjoy the game, how surprised are you with that?
I'm very surprised because I remember being in the league, involved as an active player, and how ardent the league was about influences around gambling, you know, and in particular me being from Vegas, it's like the integrity of the game is so sacred to the National Football League, and they didn't want any cloudiness with that, right? So I had to be careful where I went in the city. I didn't want to be associated with anybody that was associated with sports betting. So I had to watch my step. And now as a retired player, I don't. Because the NFL has partnered up with the National Football League, essentially. The sports betting industry has a lot of partnerships when you factor in the Major League Baseball, the NBA, hockey.
Yeah.
So I think it's synonymous right now with the growth of sports betting. The fact that Vegas is a global city, too, is highly appealing for all those franchise owners right now.
I want to get to your time in the NFL, 9 seasons, Falcons, Broncos, Seahawks, but let's go back to Rancho. So growing up here in Vegas, you're at Rancho High School. I mean, are you playing tons of sports? How are you your proclivity is football? Were you doing everything? Take me to the athletic side of you.
I was everywhere. I was in the bowling alley. I was playing
Is that a sport?
Well,
is bowling a sport?
Yeah, there's some athletes in the alley.
All right.
No, my mom and dad were bowlers, and I just picked it up. But no, I was like any kid. I was playing baseball. I was playing basketball. I was running track, football. I got into football because of my brother. I have an older brother. He's 7 years older than me. Incredible athlete, and I just watched him play, and I wanted to be just like him. So he would be in the park with all of his buddies, and he's 7 years older than me. So here I am, a 7-year-old, wanting to play with 14-year-old kids, right, teenagers, and I wasn't scared though. I just wanted to go out there and show them what I could do, and they always teased me, "We'll hurt you. You can't come out here and play with us. We'll hurt you." And I just nagged them. I poked them, and finally said, "Okay, we're not going to take it easy on you." So I went out there, and I was the fastest guy on the field. They couldn't catch me. They couldn't touch me. And so that switched over to, instead of "we're going to hurt you, we're going to protect you." So that just gave me confidence. And so from any aspect of sports that I wanted to participate in, I went in there with a high level of confidence.
Yeah, and we see that story a lot because a lot of guys who are brothers and they make it into the professional leagues, it's like, I always think it's the younger brother, it's the younger sibling that tends to be the one who has tremendous success. And a lot of it is just mental, and I think it's believing in yourself and having that, that room to see yourself as playing against 14-year-olds, being 7, and seeing you could have success. So then when you go up against other 7-year-olds, you're thinking, I'm the greatest 7-year-old in the world.
Pretty much. I mean, it's not off the charts. It's not conceited, in nature or anything like that. It's just a high level of confidence and belief in yourself, and professional sports is that. There's a fine line between being highly confident and losing all confidence. It's just a fine line that way. And you don't see it. Sometimes you see it play out in front of you. If you watch sports, whether it's basketball, baseball, or football, sometimes you see it. But you certainly don't want it to appear if you are participating. And for me, I was always about confidence and making sure I had a high level of confidence.
And, it's so interesting because now we hear so many parents are trying to tell their kids, to specialize. Everything's about specializing at an early age so you can have success in the future. And, your success at Colorado, you were a kick returner, you were a wideout, you were a running back. Early guys, they used to do that. Gale Sayers was like a guy, right, who was a running back with the Bears, but kick returner, one of the best guys. As we got older and I was growing up, Devin Hester was basically on an NFL roster because of his kick returning skills. In high school, before we get to college, what were you doing? Because I know many guys in high school, before they get to the college level, Antoine Randall L. was a quarterback. A lot of these guys do this stuff even in college and high school. What was high school like for you in terms of on the football field? Were you playing like every position?
No, I wasn't that. It's funny because I talked about confidence just now. I'll talk about perseverance because my freshman year in high school, I don't know how this happened, but I missed a sign-up date. Coming from Jim Bridger in North Las Vegas to Rancho, I missed a sign-up date.
You missed the sign-up date for football?
For football. I missed training camp. And so the first day of school, I go out and I'm watching them practice football. And I go up to the coach, the JV coach. I'm like, hey, can I go out for the football team? He's like, well, we just had training camp. Why weren't you at training camp? I'm like, I didn't know where to sign up. I didn't know that you had a training camp. I just want to play football. And he said, well, it's too late. I said, well, when can I go out for football? Next year. So my freshman year at Rancho, I had to sit out, and I couldn't participate in football.
That must have hurt you so much.
It did. But the perseverance aspect of it, because I just prepared myself mentally and getting ready for my sophomore year, and then it worked out. And so I went out for the football team at Rancho. I was on JV, I think, for 2 games, and then they moved me up to varsity after they saw how good I was. So it worked out that way, but the perseverance standpoint, I mean, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to miss sign-up dates. But if you want it bad enough, you can still chase it, though.
Man. And then once you get onto that field and you're playing senior, what positions were you playing?
Well, I was playing running back. We ran a wing tee at the time.
Okay.
And our head coach on varsity, Lanny Littlefield, who recently passed away, but he was such a great influence. He moved the offense from a wing T to an I formation, and so I became an I back.
Okay. And tell me, for people at home, I mean, I wish I knew all the. I kind of know what you're saying, but explain the differences of that and why was that such a successful thing for you, that change?
So if you watch, I mean, we're talking about the 80s here, right? And so if you watch football, everything was a wishbone and, the pitching, perimeter oriented.
So that's what we're saying. We have the quarterback under center and then the halfbacks on the right or left, and it's more of a toss or like a counter run.
A counter run, you could do that. Mostly option, though.
Okay.
So he understood how good I was as a runner. So if he put me back in the I formation, like you saw Eric Dickerson, or because they ran a wishbone at SMU before they moved to the I back, same thing with Bo Jackson, or Herschel, or Walter Payton, or all these running backs that ran behind a fullback. So they redesigned the offense to help me see the field better, see the defense better, and then also take advantage of my athletic ability.
And how special is that? I mean, I know the high school I grew up at, they didn't have this level of coaching. You know what I mean?
Well,
to
he
have that
recognized
level of
it.
coaching at the high school level is a special thing.
It was special. It was special to me because my coach recognized that. And then on top of that, I started getting attention from colleges too. So we were on track to winning the state championship. We came one game short, the zone final.
You lost in the semifinal?
Oh, the final, we
finals.
lost to Gorman. We always lost to Gorman or so 3 years. I lost to Gorman twice and Chaparral once in the final.
Who were on these teams? Anybody who made it to the league?
Let's see. Marty Cordova was on Gorman. He played baseball though.
Okay.
Nick Bell was not. He was on Clark.
No,
John Bowman, a teammate of mine at the University of Colorado, was on Chaparral.
Really?
Yeah, and he was a outstanding linebacker in the state of Nevada at the time. But yeah, we had some guys that went on to other colleges from those schools, and just a lot of talent at that time in the city, though.
And when the interest starts coming from colleges and you're in high school and you're at this level, I mean, how do you start handling these offers? How do you not get a big head? What are your parents saying at the time? What is life like when it really looks like, hey, like this could become a profession, me being a, is that like something you internalize at a certain point? Because to me, what's so fascinating is like, listen, I'm a 5'9.5" Jewish guy from New Jersey. I wanted to be Allen Iverson up until like 4th grade. And then eventually I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not going to be Allen Iverson, right? And I think it's so fascinating when professional athletes internalize the possibility that this is going to be probably come a reality. How old were you when that became an internalized thing?
Honestly, I was 21.
Oh, so late.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I know I excelled at football, and I know I was going to go to college. I knew that. And I was motivated to go to college because I was watching Randall Cunningham at UNLV. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I wanted to play college football, but also I wanted to get education. So I'm an economist. That's what I went to school for.
Really?
Yeah, I love the economy. I love numbers, and I always grew up that way. So I thought I was going to work on Wall Street. I went to University of Colorado to go work on Wall Street. Never did I internalize.
Even with the football scholarship and everything.
Yeah. Never did I internalize becoming a professional athlete. I never thought that was real, right? And another story of perseverance was because in high school, my dad was in a military station at Nellis Air Force Base, got transferred to Texas and Randolph Air Force Base between my junior year and senior year.
Wow.
So after my junior year at Rancho, I had to move to Texas. And long story short, I get to this high school in Texas. It's a really nice high school, really good high school. And I go up to their coach. His name's Coach Mickler, which to this day I hate him. But he informed me that they already had a running back and that they're not looking for another running back. I'm like, well, I think I can beat him out. Can I get a chance? And he's like, no, you can't. This is I'll move you to defensive back. So I went home in a panic, told my dad the story. He says, well, why don't you go to the school with all these letters that you're receiving from colleges, and maybe that'll influence a competition. So I had a moving box, a storage box full of letters from like USC, UCLA, offer
scholarships.
Yeah, scholarships from around the country. I mean,
because a lot of this happens junior year anyway.
Right. So you name the school, they were recruiting me. So I'm like, okay, maybe this will influence. And so I show up, I got a storage box full of letters, right? And I say, nope, defensive back. And so then I really started to panic. So my dad arranged, I have a sister, she's 4 years older than me. I could move back to Vegas, live with her. We lived in a trailer in North Las Vegas my senior year of high school. So for me, going to college was everything. Earning that scholarship was everything. And that was my only focus at that moment.
So wait, let's unpack this for a second. You're telling me, and this is what's so fascinating about athletics, because you would just think, like most things in the world, it should be based upon merit. It should just be like, who's better, right? Mm-hmm. But this guy, Coach Mickler, is that his name?
Coach Mickler. I forgot his first name.
Look, we don't even need that. With a last name like that, you don't even need a first name.
Okay, right.
Coach Mickler, I mean, isn't it fascinating how even at that level, and that's why I think this even happens in college, we see with, a coach who recruits their quarterback as opposed to the quarterback who
Right.
comes in, just the external factors that come into play that have nothing to do with, proclivity on the football field, how that becomes an obstacle is fascinating.
Behind the scenes, a lot of times it's more difficult than on the field itself. Like just getting the opportunity. There's a lot of fences. There's a lot of hurdles, right? And for me, it's all about perseverance, though. And I think it makes the journey more worthwhile that way.
But what was it about you as a youngster? We know most high school kids, they're full of themselves, especially if they're carrying around a crate of offer letters to have the ability to kind of, I mean, a lot of people would have quit football, probably. Some people would have it's easier to stay with the family than go back and live in a trailer with my sister and go back home. So a lot of people would have quit football. They would have said it's an omen, it's a sign.
Sure.
But why did you not look at it that way?
Because my parents trusted me too, though. I mean, think about it. Like, they understood my dreams and realized my dreams. I wanted to go to get an education, and I wasn't going to get the opportunity, I don't believe, to earn a scholarship from that school. So to send me back here to Vegas with my sister, they wanted to trust me, and I didn't want to let them down. So I think there's some motivation in there. Your journey is everything it really is, and if you have those key words and you can define them, perseverance, motivation, and then certainly confidence, it gives you a leg up, I believe. Anyway, at least that was my track.
Who was this running back that was playing for Coach Mickler that was so great?
What
was his name? Barry Sanders?
No, it wasn't Barry. I played against Barry in college, though. It was...
was it the guy who actually made it? Or
No, he actually went to TCU. His name was Edward Galaviz.
Oh, that's my guy at Merrill Lynch. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
Who is this? Coach Mickler's choosing this guy. So he played at TCU.
Yeah, he never really got on the field.
He didn't?
Yeah. So,
wow.
I know. All my friends told me you should send your sign-in bonus check, a copy of your sign-in bonus for the Atlanta Falcons to Coach Mickler. You should send that to him.
I'm always curious, as a guy who then competes on the field, I mean, it's good to have these things, these these little chips on your shoulder, right? That's why I love Brady. Because it's like no matter he's dating he's married to a supermodel, he's got 7 rings, right? And still there's a chip on his shoulder, which is amazing.
His production company is called 199 because he was drafted, I think
199?
199.
6th round.
Right, 6th round. So, I mean, we all find ways to motivate ourselves, and whether it's a chip or not, just find out what motivates you, what makes you tick, and I think that could lead to a lot of success for anybody.
So when you have a bunch of offer letters, you're living in a trailer with your sister here after you come back from Texas, you got a whole crate of offer letters. How does Colorado become the place, Boulder?
Well, the first letter I got from Colorado, I threw it away.
What?
And I did because I'm getting recruited by Pitt and Illinois and Alabama and Florida.
But you wouldn't just even frame it on your wall and just be like, oh, look, I got a...
No, because Colorado didn't exist at the time. Like, in terms of on the map from a football standpoint, from what you heard, like if you're outside the state of Colorado, it was Oklahoma, it was Nebraska, it was all these other schools. So I took a trip.
Wait, hold on. You open up the letter, the
envelope.
The
first letter.
The first letter is an envelope.
Right.
You open up the letter, you read it, and then you threw it in the trash.
because I was getting recruited by everybody else. So I was like, I'm not going to go to Colorado. And then eventually they convinced me to go on a recruiting trip. Les Miles was my recruiting coordinator at the time. And he showed up at Rancho, and he was out of place at Rancho. But
why do you say that?
Well, just because Rancho in North Las Vegas, and then you had this preppy college coach, and he just looked at it as a Pritchard, there's a guy looking for you, and you got to see him fast because I think he's a little nervous to be here right now.
Wow. And I just know him from coaching LSU
right,
and all that
right.
stuff. But he must be a young dude.
I was a very, very young tight ends coach at the time.
Wow.
But from Michigan, just like Bill McCartney. And he convinced me to take a trip to Colorado on a specific date. And I say that because on that date of my recruiting trip to Colorado, Eric Bieniemy was on that trip. Alfred Williams was on that trip. All these guys, they're my brothers to this day. And we formed a bond that cannot be separated. And that led us to some great heights out there.
A couple things, incredible heights. And it's really, this is the 87 recruiting class, which
14
is
scholarships for that class.
14 scholarships. People, I mean, it's a legendary recruiting class, probably in terms of college football, but of course at Boulder. Tell me, when a kid throws away a recruitment letter and is not thinking that school, what can Les Miles say to you to be so impressionable to make you want to go on the trip?
Well, and I think you see that today with student athletes. You have to sell them on leaving home and going to a strange place and feeling like they're wanted and feeling like they can be a difference maker. And I say that for a reason. Les Miles, he created a vision of the future. But he was adamant about taking this trip to Boulder. You got to get to Boulder. You got to get to Boulder. You got to see this campus. You got to see what we're building. And so my curiosity got piqued. And so that was it. Once he convinced me to go on that trip on a specific date, I was highly curious.
And you get there, and was it just like, I'm home? Like, did you just know it? Or how did you end up signing the letter and going there and choosing Colorado?
A lot of factors. One, have you ever been to Boulder?
No.
Okay, so you leave Denver and you drive north about 34 miles, 36 miles, and you get to this part of the highway, the journey, and there's overlook, right? And you can see mountains. I mean, it's just the most picturesque scene I've ever seen, ever.
Just seeing your face, it's like you're lighting up.
I am just thinking about it, right?
Wow.
So I'm in this car and they're driving me, and we get to this overlook, the scenic overlook they call it, and I start to look down at Boulder and this college. I'm like, I can go to school there. I see these mountains, and I just fell in love with it. Just the scenery, just the vibe. It was so different than Vegas at the time. So once I get there, I start to meet the coaches. I start to find out more about the school and the program. I start to like it more and more, but then I meet the recruits, and I mention those names on the same trip. So you do all the activities. You meet everybody associated with the program, with the school. They give you all the information, but now it's time for us to bond. And for Coach Mack to invite all of us on that one trip on that specific date, I think he was hoping that we would bond. Because what we did is we went around the table similar to this one, talking about who's recruiting us, right? You're getting recruited by USC. You're getting recruited by Washington. You're getting recruited by Texas. You're getting recruited by Alabama.
Yeah.
Instead of all of us at this table going to those schools, why don't we collectively come here and win a national championship?
See, that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see that and experience that, but then, to want to be a trailblazer,
right.
To not, just say, what, it's easier for me to go to the place with the pedigree, because Colorado didn't have the pedigree. And you guys collectively decide to, make great things happen. Of course, 1990, you win the national championship. You're the MVP of that team. But, I mean, so many things happened. And from a team standpoint, there was 9 Colorado players drafted in that 91 draft that you were the first player selected. But when we're in college, I mean, let's just talk about some of the things you accomplished, okay? Of course, the national championship is a great thing, and I love that from not just, ability on the field, but I think intangibles. If I was a GM of an NFL team, winning would be a big factor for me, not just ability, but winning, because I think that is a skill to know how to win, especially when you're at Colorado.
Right.
It's different to win at Alabama every year with Nick Saban. But you're playing wide receiver, you're kick returner, you're running back. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, still to this day, both school records at Colorado, 26.4 yards per reception as an average for your career, 17.9 yards per touch rushing the ball, both still school records. Is that true?
I think so. You have that? Because I would imagine, because we've had other athletes since I've been there. Michael Westbrook, he just went into the College Football Hall of Fame.
This is what I see.
Then that's true then. I still have those records. How about that?
It's pretty crazy. Of course, inducted onto the University of Colorado Hall of Fame, MVP of the national championship team. Before all this happens, your ability on the field. I mean, it seems like when I'm reading about you, it's like you grew into yourself during these years, like most people should in college. Beyond athletics, it seems like you really became a fully formed person and found yourself during these years from the way you're even speaking about it. Was that the case?
I think so. I mean, the journey again, right? I mean, when I first got to school, I was 170 pounds. I couldn't gain weight. And I remember my mom writing me a letter talking about, it'll come, just be patient. And then finally, my senior year, I was able to mature or evolve or create the body that was necessary in order to play at that level. But, the dream and certainly my motives and what I was chasing was still real, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to realize that. So, no, I think it comes with time, but you have to have patience. You can't rush it. And I had to get settled down, though. My mom was a big influence on me in terms of settling me down that way.
And the reason why I hope people enjoy these conversations and the things that I hope they take from these conversations is, we're not just talking about athletics. We're talking about succeeding in life, right? And to me, what I can take away from this and what I would love for you to teach us a little bit is, being able to establish a winning culture in a place that doesn't have the pedigree, right? Well, everybody who's listening to this, from succeeding in business, succeeding in broadcasting, succeeding in anything you want to do, how do you change a culture that's not established? To me, if I showed up at Alabama, you just look around, right? You look around, you see the legends, you see the rings. It's 80% of the work's done for you because Nick Saban's there, and they did it last year, right?
Right.
How do you make yourself a believer? How do you change culture and get to a winning point when it's not established?
Well, I circle back to that. I guess it's a mantra that I have, is being a difference maker. I think if we went around the table with all the players, we all probably didn't realize it at the time, but we wanted to be difference makers. I think you change a culture that way. Like, do you want to be part of the process, or do you want to be a difference maker? Like at University of Colorado, I wouldn't say never. I think in the early 70s, they had a high level of success, but never really challenged for a national championship. And so we thought that we could do that. We could help the team that they were building, the players that were already there, and then certainly we could be an influence if we all attended the school. But it goes back to the concept of being a difference maker. I think if we all had that mindset, there's no limit, right? There shouldn't be a limit.
And that season was just a magical season. I mean, your first game, that 1990 season opener, at running back, you had 20 carries, 217 yards, 2 TDs. Was the whole season just a magical year? Nothing could go wrong? Or take me to that national championship game, how this all...
Yeah, no, a lot went wrong. So my junior year, we were actually undefeated. And we played Notre Dame, and we lost to Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl.
Wow.
And that was our only loss, but we didn't win a national championship. So we had multiple guys that could have went to the National Football League the following year, but they decided, no, we're going to come back to Colorado, be a difference maker, and win a national championship. So it started out rocky because Eric Bieniemy wasn't available for us against Tennessee in that game you're talking about. And Coach Mack called me into the office, and he said, Bill McCartney, our head coach, and he said I was the best running back that he had, including Eric. Because we had this running back competition. Like, we were moving from the wishbone. How about this for irony? I mean, history repeats itself. We were moving away from the wishbone, and we were going to the I formation.
Just like high school.
Just like high school. And so we had this tailback competition, and apparently I beat everybody out, but I couldn't gain weight. I was 170 pounds, and they thought I would get hurt. So they created this position for me called wingback because they wanted me on the field. And they put Eric back at tailback. So when Eric was not available our senior year, Coach Mack, like I said, called me into the office, and he said, "You're the best tailback I have." And I'm more developed at the time, so I can handle the punishment. So I told him, yeah, put me back there.
So that was kind of, just to understand in football terms, it was kind of like a Deebo Samuel kind of thing. Is that what you're doing when both are you on the field?
Kind of. I mean, So we were option team. You see the National Football League, you see the RPO stuff, but I was a flanker. I was on the perimeter. So, and then I would motion, and then I would be around the backfield at times, kind of like Debo,
Yeah.
kind of, not specifically like that, but kind of like that. But the tailback position was something that I needed to do in that game against
And
Tennessee.
personally, when you're trying to get to the next level,
Mm-hmm.
you're roommates with Eric Bieniemy. You're playing the same position.
Right.
How do you like somebody that you're rooming with who's also competing for the same touches and the spotlight?
Yeah, it's interesting because we were roommates our freshman year only, but there was too much testosterone in that room. Seriously.
What was it like? Take me to that dorm room.
I mean, so we were competing at that time, my freshman year, we were competing for not the same position, but for playing time, right? So I was the right halfback, he was the left halfback in the wishbone. And so we actually got on the field, but Eric was further along, he was more developed than I was. And so he got more playing time than I did. And then we had another guy in our room. We had a triple
Yeah.
in a dorm room. Can you imagine that?
Man.
Can't do that these days, right?
No, that's a lot. That is a lot of testosterone.
Yeah, and his name was George Hemingway, and he happened to be the leading rusher in the country out of high school that year from Colton High School.
Haven't heard of him.
Out in California. And actually he was ahead of Emmitt Smith at the time.
Wow.
So we could not exist in that room together. It was just too much competition, too much ego. And so I moved out the second semester of my freshman year.
Wow.
So I got my own dorm room.
Man.
But, Eric, he is such an intense competitor and has helped him to this day as offense coordinator with the Chiefs. But he helped me. He wasn't available, and he was my biggest fan and my biggest coach for that big moment for us as a football team.
Let's talk a little bit about Eric. So, how much of Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs' success, what we're seeing done there with Andy Reid and Eric being the offensive coordinator, how much of the success can we attribute to him and how the dynamic you think he has with Andy Reid? You would be a perfect person to kind of give us some insight on that. Me looking in, Andy Reid's probably a top 10 coach of all time. Mm-hmm. Eric, though, it's one of these guys that and it comes up every year, the conversations, should he be a head coach?
Right.
Why is he not getting these opportunities? Tell me how impressed you are with him from, a coaching standpoint nowadays.
He's highly qualified to become a head coach. I think he's a fierce competitor. He wears his emotions on his sleeve a lot of times, and I don't know if that's misunderstood or not, but I think Eric has pulled the greatness out of a lot of players that he's been around. Adrian Peterson, he coached him up in Minnesota for a while. But no, he's been an incredible influence. I knew he was going to be a coach, though.
Really?
Yeah,
How did you know that?
Well, like I said, I go back to the senior year, and he wasn't available, but yet he was coaching. He was seeing things that I wasn't seeing, and he was helpful on the sideline against Tennessee to help me get to almost 220 yards. So, he's such a competitor, an intense guy, passionate about what he does, and he loves it. I think his success level is all because he loves being a coach. He loves being around these athletes, and he pulls the greatness out of them.
And you wouldn't be surprised for him to be a head coach one day, right?
I would not. The opportunity in the National Football League, there's so many reasons why Eric's not a head coach.
Can you tell me a little bit?
Well, I think from an African-American standpoint, they're not as progressive in the National Football League as perceived to be. The Rooney Rule is taken as a joke sometimes. It's a check-the-box moment for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
You have to have a relationship with an owner. And then certainly the decision makers in the front office, they have to have a relationship with you too, because it's all about trust. Their job's on the line. The owner, they want to have a successful franchise. So there's a lot of factors in there, a lot of forces that are lining up against Eric right now. But I think he'll be a head coach. It's just a matter of time.
It's a shame, And so when you feel that, and you have the experience being in those rooms and in those circumstances, when you see the Brian Flores lawsuit. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that when you first saw that?
I thought Coach Flores is sacrificing his career as a head coach to inform people, to pull back the curtain. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
People, I think the National Football League's looking at the Rooney Rule a little bit more critically now,
Yeah.
which they should. You're seeing women progress too through the National Football League now because of that. So Coach Flores, I mean, he did a brave thing. We'll see if he gets another opportunity as a head coach, but I think by pulling back the curtain and exposing the process, exposing these owners a little bit, now they're looking at themselves in the mirror, which that's what it's going to take to make a difference. And so you go back to the difference maker moniker or mantra. Coach Flores certainly is one of those type of individuals as well.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, pulling back the curtain a little bit more, and then we'll move on because I want to talk about your NFL stuff. But, we see success that these guys have. Tomlin,
Right.
Dennis Green, there's Leslie Frazier. These are guys who, are top-notch coaches. Is it, I mean, when the Brian Flores thing came out and I was hearing what people were saying on these debate shows, and you've been a broadcaster for over 17 years, I hear people saying, like, we can't connect or relate. And when I hear that, it's like, I just can't even fathom, like, you're telling me it's like relating to an alien. Like, I don't get how that is because a lot of people are saying
from an ownership
standpoint
right.
can't relate to an African American candidate as well as a white candidate.
Right.
Do you think it's as something as stupid as that? Or?
No, it's not there. I think because ownership is rarely in the room.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean, NFL owners, they're billionaires.
They're not
other things that they're.
So you don't think it's them with the head coaching?
No, it's more of the executive level and the fear of keeping their job. So if I hire the wrong person,
we're saying team presidents, general managers.
Yeah, exactly. If I hire the wrong person, okay, my job's on the line now. Which it is, because they're in that position to make that.
But it is for anybody.
It really is, right. But
I'm saying,
but the owner is going to listen to the recommendation of that guy, right, or that gal, if the woman, if she's in charge, which we probably should be more progressive that way, right?
Right.
But if you look at executive levels, there isn't African Americans, there isn't people of color.
Right. Ozzie Newsome was a big one. He was for the Ravens, was one of the best ever.
Right, and he was one of the best. I mean, he should be a Hall of Famer as an executive too.
He was a great tight end.
Great tight end, Hall of Famer, but in the front office, there's not a lot of great relationships for a lot of candidates.
Thank God it's changing. Like the Minnesota Vikings, Kwesi, he actually went to my high school.
Okay.
So Princeton guy.
Right. Ryan Poles in Chicago too.
He was more of an economist kind of guy too, like you wanted to be. He was a Wall Street guy.
Mm-hmm.
So thank God things are changing, and it just takes me back to like what we were saying in high school with the merit thing and this. What's this coach's name?
Mickler.
You'll never forget that name.
Never.
But I just, when things in our society are not based upon merit, it frustrates me so much.
Yeah, it should. Because, I mean, how else are you going to change it if it doesn't frustrate you? So you just got to keep chopping wood. That's an expression that Eric Bieniemy uses a lot. Got to keep chopping wood. And then eventually they'll notice you. They're going to have to. I mean, he's been to 3 straight AFC Conference Championship games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible as an offense coordinator. But he's got an opportunity. It's just he doesn't have the alliances or the relationships, I believe, that can keep that door open for him.
Okay, interesting. So, you win this national championship. You end up getting drafted. I mean, 13th overall by the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, that's... Who else? Who was the first pick of that draft? Do you remember? Are you one of those guys who can name like the top 12 guys?
In front of me, that kind of thing?
Let's try. Can you?
Russell Maryland was the number 1 overall pick that year.
Okay, I don't even know who that is.
Defensive lineman for the Cowboys.
Okay.
I do remember Bruce Pickens.
Okay.
Because he played at Nebraska against me.
Okay.
And he got picked 3rd overall by Atlanta. Atlanta had 2 first-round picks, 3 and 13.
That's no relation to the Pickens on the Steelers now?
No. That's George, right? George, yeah. No relation there. Alvin Harper went in front of me, played against him at Tennessee when he played in Tennessee. Herman Moore went in front of me. I can't remember the number.
Okay.
But I mean, my life changed when they called my name.
Where were
But,
you?
In my apartment in my underwear.
Were you alone? Were you with? I mean,
I have my roommate. So I had.
you weren't with your parents in your underwear.
No. I was in my apartment in Boulder, Creekside Apartments off of Arapahoe, and the draft had started. Back then, it was forever. It was 15 minutes between picks. I woke up late because we thought Alfred Williams, our star defensive outside linebacker, won the Butkus Award that year. We thought he was going to be going to the Broncos at number 4. They drafted Mike Kroll from Nebraska.
Wow.
So anyway, I woke up late. It was about pick 5 or pick 6. And Rico Smith, who was my roommate, I come out of the bedroom. I'm in my pajamas, which when you're a broke college kid, that's your underwear, right? So I'm in the living room watching the draft, and then the phone starts to ring. Pick 8 or whatever. And it's an NFL team. I can't remember the first NFL team it was, but they asked for me, and Rico handed me the phone. He's like, "Hey, somebody from the league is calling you." And I'm like, "Somebody's messing with me right now, right?" It's like, I don't know. And so I picked up the phone, and they say, "Hey, this is so-and-so from this team, and are you Mike Pritchard? We were looking about drafting you here in the first round." And I'm like, "Who is this, right? What are you guys talking about?" And no, just we want you to stay by your phone. We want you to be available because we might select you coming up in the draft. And I'm like, okay. And so I just hang up the phone. I wish I could remember the very first team, but I didn't have call waiting. You got to think about this. This is
No cell phone.
1991. I didn't have a cell phone. Certainly didn't have a cell phone. Didn't have call waiting, and my phone started ringing off the hook. So as soon as I hung up the phone, I picked it up the second time. It was the Dallas Cowboys. I do remember this one. And it was the Dallas Cowboys. "Hey, we got pick 11.
Is it Jerry Jones? Who is it?
It's not. No, I can't remember. It wasn't Jimmy Johnson yet.
Okay.
It was probably a scout or
Yeah.
somebody who's running the draft. And it said, "We're going to pick you. We're thinking about picking you. Do you want to be a Dallas Cowboy?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I do." "Well, stay pat. Stay next to your phone. We'll get back in touch with you. There's a lot of things going on right now." And I'm like, okay. I hang up the phone, and I say, "Holy crap," right? I didn't say crap, but you can imagine what I said to Rico. And the phone just kept ringing. Pittsburgh, Atlanta, New York. I mean, all these teams started calling. And then I didn't have call waiting, and I'm standing in my underwear with the phone like this. And I hang up for another time, and my agent got through. And so my agent told me, like, "Yeah, this is real. You're in play. There's a run on receivers right now. And there's a lot of teams either moving up to draft you, or the teams that are in place, they want to stay there and draft you. Stay by your phone. Be ready to go. Be ready to answer it. Do not answer it for anybody else other than a team." I'm like, good. Hung up, and then the phone just kept ringing and ringing. And then finally, Atlanta got through. They select, "Okay, we're going to select you 13th overall.
Yeah.
We're going to put you on the phone with the head coach." So once they say that, then that's when it becomes real.
Yeah. Because they're on the clock. Who was the head coach?
Jerry Glanville.
Wow.
Jerry Glanville. So he gets on the phone, and he's just a character. If anybody knows Jerry Glanville, and he says to me, "Are you ready to help us win a championship? You ready to come to Atlanta? We'd love to see you in black, all in black." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, coach. I definitely want to play for you." And so, okay, we're going to select you. And we're going to give you to our travel agency, and they're going to hook you up with a ticket to fly you out to Atlanta. And this is before you're even drafted, right? So I get all the information from the travel agency and everything, the ticket, it's first class and all that. I got to get to the airport in an hour, and I'm in Boulder. And at that time, I had to get to Stapleton. It was downtown area, not like DIA, which is incredible. You can't get there now in an hour. So I hung up the phone. There was a couple minutes left, and I'm telling Rico, "I just got drafted by the Falcons, and we're going crazy." And then they announced it on ESPN. Wow. And this is giving me chills just talking about it. But so my dad, something told him that day to tape the draft. And he taped that moment. Wow. He taped the moment when I got drafted to the Atlanta Falcons. And we have it on VHS to this day, which is incredible. But No, I had to get to the airport in an hour. First class ticket to Atlanta, and my world completely changed right there.
And what does your dad say to you after? I mean, knowing all the
They couldn't get
perseverance.
through. They couldn't call me. They
But when you
couldn't.
eventually talked to him, he must have been so proud.
Oh, of course. I mean, I was shocked. I'm in Atlanta. I do a whole bunch of media in Atlanta. I go through the whole press junket, everything. And so I'm in my room in a Best Western, by the way, in Swanee, Georgia. And I'm just sitting there, just hanging out, and it just hits me. And then I think it's midnight, so it's 9 o'clock back here, and I called them, and they couldn't believe it. I still couldn't believe it. And so we caught up a little bit later, and we were able to come back down to earth and kind of rationalize everything.
Yeah.
But
how would you, when you see the way the draft, just being here in Vegas, and
Right.
how big the draft experience is for
I
players
would have loved
nowadays.
to have been drafted the way that
Today,
they're drafted now.
now.
Yeah, especially
You-
here too. That would have
Yeah.
been incredible.
It's a great moment for those
Mm-hmm.
kids. And what's such a testament to how great you were is, you guys are coming off that national championship.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 91 draft. There's 9 Colorado players drafted in this NFL draft in 91, and you're the first of all 9. And
know.
when a team wins the national championship,
Mm-hmm.
usually there's a lot of, guys getting drafted. I mean, it's a little bit of a departure being Colorado. So that was a special thing
Yeah.
rather than Alabama or something.
Yeah.
But to be the first of all those guys drafted, when you were gearing up for that, did you anticipate you would be the first? No.
No.
You thought it was going to be Alfred.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be Alfred. My agent had told me maybe the second round. So that was
What?
going to be the next day. That's
Oh, my
why I was in
God.
underwear, right?
Now it makes sense. You
Yeah.
thought you had some time.
Oh yeah, I was going to watch the first round and enjoy the day, and then maybe the second round it was going to be exciting for me.
Oh, my
But
God.
no, that happened way earlier than expected, and so no, you look back on those days, and I realized how good we were as a team, and I realized how much talent we had on that roster. But to be the first one drafted that year was incredible.
And when you get to the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
the transition from college to the NFL, if you had a word or a sentence to describe it, what was it like?
Oh, one word? I mean, that's incredible to think about.
Or a sentence? I just want to.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly hectic, I would say. Overwhelming at times, stressful, fast-paced. I mentioned that. I'll mention that. You really can't describe it. I mean, it is life in a fast lane. It really is.
You get
you have to be ready for it.
You're the 13th pick, and to me, I'm thinking the Falcons, they have this asset now. They just got, Mike Pritchard. We got the, 13th best player, maybe, a first-round guy, on our board. You could have been number 1 on their board. You don't know however it played out. When they get you and you show up, are they doing everything in their power to make sure that you're going to have success at the next level, or is it still a lot of figuring it out for yourself? Because I think, to me, as an outside looking in kind of thing, as a fan, I always think it's, and we hear these stories in the NBA, right? You draft this guy, you're going to give him every opportunity to be successful, right? But there's not a lot of hand-holding. You can't force somebody to get to that level. So what is it like when you ultimately get drafted and you're in an NFL franchise now?
Well, you have to get comfortable. I mean, you have to settle in. Like, you cannot allow your emotions to overwhelm you, because if you do, then you're going to bust out, right? And we see that all the time. I think a lot of times physically, and you have all this talent, but that's not why you fail. You fail because mentally you're not strong enough. Fortunate for me, when I got to Atlanta, Deion Sanders took me under his wing.
He was there. Was Favre there?
Favre got drafted in the second round, the same draft.
He was
I did.
drafted in the same
Yeah,
draft.
same draft, yeah, in the second round. So
Wow.
I bonded with Favre a little bit there that first year, but he was going through a lot different. He was going on a different path than I was.
And you know what's so funny, just to make a mental note of this, I keep thinking of you in your underwear. That's going to be my new thing. Brett Favre has that famous picture from him in his dorm room.
Right.
Remember? And that's just was the culture. We're so attuned now.
I think he had a cell phone, though, didn't he?
I think he did. He had like
Yeah,
a brick. It
the
looked like a brick.
Yeah. See?
But
See?
but it's interesting because we're so the image we have in our
Right.
mind now is like you go up, you get your hat, you hug Roger Goodell, and it was a dorm room thing. So that was
Yeah.
the same draft.
Same
Brett
draft.
Favre,
Same draft.
and Dion was there.
And Dion picked me up. Well, so when I moved to Atlanta, Dion's like, I got to show you around town. I got to show you the
Oh.
places to go, who to know, who to meet, that kind of thing.
What a great thing.
It was. I mean, you talk about helping me settle in, and I was excited about being in Atlanta. So Dion showed me the ropes, and then once football started, you start to learn the differences between being a professional athlete and then representing yourself as an athlete off the field. So it's an ongoing process, right? It's never a finished product in terms of being in the spotlight that way.
Do you see is it something like when you're a little kid and you're 7 and you're playing with your older brother who's 14, is there a huge gap? I mean, you come from college and now
Right.
you're on the field and you see a guy who's as athletic as Deion Sanders. I
Sure.
mean, is it like, wow, holy cow, this is
Or-
no joke anymore?
Yeah, or you see Ronnie Lott in front of you, right? I mean, yeah, those moments were real. I mean, my rookie year, we're playing the Raiders, and I'm lined up in the slot, and you sense a blitz coming off the edge, guy right in front of me, and so behind him was Ronnie Lott, looking at me just like this.
He's a scary
Oh,
dude. He's
yeah,
got like
very scary.
He's got like 4 fingers on one hand and he doesn't even
Yeah,
care. Or I
he
think
ripped-
one's like
He ripped that one
sideways.
off. Yeah, he ripped that one off. But so that was intense, right? But we checked to a running play, and so I got to block him as opposed to run a route against him. And that, again, it settles you down.
Right.
I just blocked Ronnie Lott. I'm good, right? And so you have those moments. I mean, lining up against Lawrence Taylor, or you're playing against some of the people that you grew up, or eventually you played with people that you admired while
Who
growing
was
up.
like that? Who was the craziest?
Eric Dickerson.
Was that was the one?
My third year in Atlanta, like we signed Eric Dickerson. I'm like, what?
And this is a guy you grew
This
up
is a
watching.
guy I grew up idolizing, really. And so here he is in the locker room. And I'm like, in awe of this guy, right? And I was all rookie, and I was doing well in the league myself, but I'm like, it's Eric Dickerson over there. And so you have those nostalgic moments every once in a while.
And just you personally, I'm curious as Mike Pritchard, are you the type of personality that goes up to him, oh my God, Eric, Eric, I mean,
Oh, yeah, we
you're
went
my,
out-
I had a
yeah.
poster on my wall of
Sure.
you. Or do you just kind of play it cool?
No, I didn't play it cool at all. I mean, ended up knowing Eric and going out to dinner and all that stuff. He was my teammate, so you just want information too.
Does he wear goggles at dinner?
He does not.
Okay.
He does not.
What was that? He had bad eye. What was the goggles thing? Protection
You
thing
know
or
what?
an eyesight thing?
I never asked him. I think he had every pad that you could put on, though.
He had
And I
every
asked
what?
Every pad that you could put on
Really?
your body. Because Eric was like that. Eric, he had the neck roll. He had
He
everything.
looked cool. I mean, honestly, he
yeah,
looked cool.
he
Who
did.
is the best running back of all time? in the
Barry
NFL?
Sanders. I mean,
Really? You know
yeah.
it just like that?
Oh, yeah. Barry.
And
played
why?
Played against him my freshman year and sophomore year.
Oklahoma State.
Yep, in college. And so Thurman Thomas was the starting running back
Yeah.
my freshman year. Barry.
But a great career with the Bills.
Oh,
Amazing.
absolutely. Absolutely. Hall of Famer. And so we're getting the brakes beaten off of us against OSU, Oklahoma State, on the road. And so Thurman comes out the game, and they put in this backup running back, and then he just runs up and down the field like nobody's touching him. And we were like saying to ourselves on the way home, I remember this distinctly. Like, who was that backup running back? He was better than Thurman, and Thurman was an All-American. And his name was Barry Sanders at the time, right? So the next year is when Barry rushed for almost 3,000 yards in college. And everybody knew his name then, right? And so by far, a close second, though, was Bo Jackson. But by far, Barry Sanders was
Now,
incredible.
remind me if I'm correct, just bringing this full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Bieniemy, when he's coaching Adrian Peterson, does he
Mm-hmm.
break the Dickerson record? Or does Dickerson still have that?
I think
the
Dickerson
NFL
still has it, right?
The NFL
yeah,
rushing
the
record.
rushing record.
But I
he
think
still has
Peterson
it.
might be 2 or
I
something.
think he went over 2,000 yards or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. I'm not sure if Eric was coaching him at the time or where Eric was, but I remember they drafted Adrian Peterson. He was fired up.
Yeah, he was coming out of Oklahoma, people.
Right. Oh.
So, and it's so fascinating in the NFL careers, right? Like Barry Sanders retired early. He could have kept going.
Walked away.
And Emmitt Smith's a guy who lasted, he was on the Cardinals and he's
Right.
doing this for a long time. And you
Right.
build up those numbers just by playing all those years. But you,
Yeah.
9 seasons in the NFL is a major success. You know, Falcons, Seahawks, Broncos.
Right.
When you look back on your time in the NFL, where were you the happiest?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Because
Was it a homecoming when you're at Denver Broncos from being from Colorado, or?
no, you know what? For me, it was a journey again. I'll be honest with you. It was being in Atlanta at 21, being in a vibrant city. They had just announced that the Olympics were going there in '96, so there were so many things happening in Atlanta. We were good. The Braves were good. Greg Maddux, who was a Vegas native as well, was pitching out there. So I grew up a big Braves fan too.
Yeah.
And then I got traded to Denver, so I was going back home and of sense to where I'm going to be in Colorado again, playing with Elway. And then my contract ran out, and so I went to Seattle, where I mellowed out. I guess that's the way. So my journey was perfect. Because if it was reversed,
Yeah.
I don't know how that would have worked out. But when I got to Seattle, I got to play with Warren Moon, and we went to the playoffs and a lot of exciting things too. So my career path was perfect. It's hard to summarize that way, but if I were to play for 3 teams and play for 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, I mean, that was incredible for me.
Who was the best leader you encountered in all those? Elway, Moon, Favre, coaches. Who was the coach of the Broncos when you were?
Well, Wade Phillips was my first year, and then the second year, Mike Shanahan.
Yeah,
became
I
coach.
love that Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, he's a great coach. And then Mike Holmgren was my coach in Seattle.
Wow, so you had a lot of
I had
legendary
great coaches,
guys.
yeah.
Who was the best leader? The guy who, like, if he was the CEO of Apple, it doesn't, if it was football, if it was tech space, whatever
Right.
it was, that person being a
Yeah.
leader in a room could make a winning culture anywhere. Who would it be?
From a coaching standpoint?
Give me a coach and then give me the player.
Well, it's even Steven with Mike Shanahan and Mike Holmgren.
Okay,
They're from the same tree, though, the Bill Walsh tree.
right.
So to bring that full circle, Bill Walsh called those games of mine.
Bill Walsh
yeah,
called those games?
Right, when I was the running back in that game against Tennessee that you mentioned and highlighted,
Yeah.
and then my national championship game.
He was the commentator.
He was a color analyst, yeah.
And
so
when we're talking, I mean,
he's
the John Wooden of football
pretty
is
much,
probably Bill
pretty
Walsh.
much. I mean, you think about today's NFL, you can thank Bill Walsh for it.
Yeah.
But from a leadership and culture building standpoint, Mike Holmgren and Mike Shanahan, they'll be in the Hall of Fame soon.
Yeah.
They're even Steven. From a player standpoint, because they're all great, right? Probably Elway.
He seemed
Yeah.
like scary and stoic, and just I love Elway
But
so much.
He's not though. Like Elway
He's
can
intense, isn't he?
He's intense, but he can relate to anybody.
See, that's a great thing.
And I think to be a leader in leadership position, you have to be able to relate to everybody.
It's amazing.
You can't treat people separately, right?
And it's amazing how somebody like that can relate to anybody when you're so gifted. I mean,
Right.
Stanford, he was a baseball guy. He was drafted. And to be so gifted at something,
Right.
but to be able to relate to people,
Right.
even when you're that talented, is a remarkable thing.
Exactly. When you know you're on a different level too, and you see it from time to time.
He was tough.
He was tough, very tough. But I'm just saying in general, you see people in an elevated position, and they might look down on somebody else. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on there, right? But
Teach us something.
Yeah.
When somebody is that remarkable of a leader, right? Success on the field. I mean, this guy, one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Right.
How is he not a great general manager and executive? How does that happen with things when we see this in the entire landscape
Yeah.
of sports? When we see somebody who's so great on the field, such a great leader, and he can relate to people like you're saying, how does that not, seep over into the executive?
Yeah, it's funny because he had some success when he was able to get Peyton Manning, right? And so even with Peyton Manning and Coach Fox at the time, it wasn't really working. So he calls up Gary Kubiak, hey, I need you
Right.
to be my head coach. And so Gary comes over and head coach, and they win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and this unbelievable defense that Elway helped to
But
build.
I'm thinking Brock Osweiler.
Well,
I'm thinking
so after Peyton Manning is where it changed for John. And I think John will tell you this because so John, and people don't realize this, as an executive, he was a champion before because in arena football, He owned the Colorado Crush, I believe,
Interesting.
with Pat Bolin.
Wow.
And they won the Arena Bowl out here in Vegas. I called that game with Andrew Siciliano.
Wow. And
So-
he owned the Broncos and the Crush.
Well, he owned
Bolin.
Pat Bolin did, right?
Yeah.
So Elway knew how to build rosters, but then when Peyton Manning leaves, I mean, it's like when Elway left the Broncos. You leave that position vacant from a legend. Like, how do you replace a legend?
Right.
And so Elway was trying to replace Peyton Manning, and that's impossible. You can't. And so he was piecemealing it together, and it just didn't work out. But a lot of people are going to remember Elway for that more so than what he built prior to that.
Right. If you could change one thing about your NFL career, what would it be?
Oh, my injury.
Tell us about that.
So my 9th year on the field, Holmgren was there. I was in the best shape. I just got a new contract. Holmgren was excited for me to play the flanker role, which is pretty much Jerry Rice and Sterling Sharp and all these guys, right?
Yeah.
And so I was excited too. And then in practice, this young player did the wrong thing, and he ran into the back of my leg.
In practice.
In practice, I know. So that collision ripped up my meniscus in my knee, my lateral meniscus, and that cartilage. Once you lose it, it's over. So I was bone on bone instantly, and instant arthritis. The mobility was gone. My speed was gone, and I only played that last year on the field because I was medicated with Toradol and everything else, right? So
And what is that? What's Toradol?
that's pretty much an anti-inflammatory and a painkiller at the same time. It's like a miracle. Half the league is using it.
And explain, because I'm so
Yeah.
curious. So when you're taking that, what does it? I mean, I'm assuming you're in tons of pain, but then you take that and it's
You feel
numb.
like you're 20.
You feel fine.
Yeah.
You feel better.
You feel great. Yeah. No,
Are there side effects to that?
Yeah, I think long term, I mean, like anything, you can get hooked on it, or certainly there's got to be side effects, right? I mean, it's harsh on your body. It's anti-inflammatory. So they manage that, though. The doctors are good about that.
I feel like I could use that right now.
I know, right?
Imagine how I would be at podcasting if I had this.
I could go play in the league, I think, right now.
Right.
But no, it was a tough year because I was getting my knee drained 3 times a week and taking that. So I knew my career was over. But if I could change anything, it would be take that collision out, because I think I would have played another 5 or 6 years. So
Look how things really shape up. But you know what? It's an amazing thing to be speaking with you, because we can see how effortless you are as a broadcaster. Being a broadcaster now, you were doing arena football,
Right.
you're doing UNLV stuff, you had some sports talk shows in Denver as well. Now you're with Veasan. You know, how do you I mean, you're so good at communicating. How was this always like a natural thing for you? Like Bieniemy, you said it was always obvious he was going to go into coaching.
Right.
For you, was it always obvious I'm going to do more broadcasting than coaching or scouting or anything like that?
no, it wasn't obvious. I think for me, I was always good with the media. I gave really good, complete answers, and the media actually voted me at CU. I'm trying to remember the award right now. You can see how I'm buying time as I try to remember the award right now.
17 years of broadcasting.
Yeah, so
It's an award, I guess, you give to the college athlete who's the best with the media.
pretty much so, and there's a name for it, but I forget it right now. It escapes me, but I'm still trying to find time to remember it.
Is it one of those things how like Fred Biletnikoff, the great Fred
Exactly.
Biletnikoff, the best wide receiver in football was
Right.
the Biletnikoff.
Right.
Did you get the Biletnikoff or no?
Well, so we do have an award, and I don't want to do the name a disservice right now, so I can't remember
okay.
it. So yeah, but anyway, I
Something
was
like
voted that, and
Yeah.
you know, when I got to the league in the National Football League, it carried over. I was always one of those guys, like when you hear people say they have a source, I felt like I was a source.
Really?
Yeah, because I see it on this side of it now that I'm in the media.
Yeah.
That, you know what, I think I was somebody's source, not knowing it. But they trusted me and I trusted them, and they would go so far with information.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Mortensen, who
Chris
covered,
Mortensen.
who covered me in Atlanta. Schefter, who covered me in Denver.
Yeah, he was big.
John Clayton, rest
Yeah,
in
the
peace, who
rest
covered
in
me in
peace.
Seattle. And so I'm dealing with those type of individuals. And obviously go-getters and really good at what they do when it comes to the media. And so I could trust them, but more importantly, they could trust me too. So being on this side of it now
Yeah.
has been beneficial. It's opened my eyes to so many different things I wasn't aware of.
Well, I got to ask selfishly, what's the? I mean, what's the key? What's the key to being a great broadcaster? What makes somebody a great broadcaster?
Being credible, I think. We are in an information business, right? And I think if people are going to tune in, they want to make sure that they have credible information. And so, for me, it's always about credibility. I can run with a rumor. I could talk about what I heard, but if it doesn't come across as credible, then what's the point?
I love it. Tell us about your show right now.
Oh, Betting Across America is
Yeah.
incredible. Like I said, I didn't come near a sports book as a player.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a retired player, it's about sports betting, the sports betting industry, and I've been a sponge for over 2 years now with VSiN, and I'm learning from some very sharp individuals on what their process is all about, how they bet sports.
Yeah.
I could think the Dallas Cowboys are better than the Minnesota Vikings, but as a bettor, that's not what they're thinking about, right? So it's opened my eyes to that world. It's competitive as well because you're trying to give credible information, like I mentioned before. But as always, you're trying to compete to be the best too. You're trying to win as many games as you can from a betting standpoint.
Do you think there's like the distinction between your knowledge, having been a former player,
right?
If you're attacking gambling, and me,
Yeah.
do you have an intense
advantage?
advantage, or have you learned through being in this world? It's super humbling, and nobody knows anything when it comes to
Totally humbling. Totally. A lot of bettors, they're data driven.
Yeah.
They're numbers oriented. And I never really looked at football that way. And so, I always had a tendency sheet. I always watched the tape and I knew exactly what my opponent was going to do, but I never tried to apply data like numbers, and so from a betting standpoint, everybody does that. And so, yeah, eye-opening, because when people are aligning themselves with probabilities,
Yeah.
then that's so much different than trying to predict an outcome of a game.
I love it. Last couple things. One piece of advice for anybody who is drafted this year, somebody who wants to have success in the NFL. What's the piece of advice you have?
Don't know it all. Always be coachable, because you don't know it all, and you will always learn something. Be humble, work hard. It's the cliches that you hear mostly. But to me, I think if you remain coachable, and this is for anybody and everybody, you'll always learn. And then when you're not willing to learn, then you need to retire. So to me, I think you should always chase something, but always open yourself up to receive information.
You don't think it's a shame that you didn't become an economist? Do you?
I kind of am, though.
No,
I kind of am.
Come on
well,
now. I was just joking with you.
Well, I think because it still fascinates me, though, right? So I'm reading what the Federal Reserve's doing.
Really?
I'm surveying Vegas. Vegas is unique this way, that we are a global city. So if you want an indicator, a leading indicator of a slowdown or what's about to happen, just walk up and down the strip. If you don't see anybody, you're like, uh-oh, something's about to happen. If you see a whole bunch of people, like, everything's good. So I survey Vegas, and from an economist standpoint, it gives me some leading indicators on where our economy is going to go globally as well.
I don't remember anything from macro and micro and all that stuff. I did read Freakonomics. That's all I know about economics.
Okay.
But,
Well, just know this, the rate of demand, they're trying to slow that down right now, and that's why they're raising interest rates.
Man, look at what we've learned. We've learned so much about you. First of all, what a congratulations on incredible, not just broadcasting, but Nevada Sports Hall of Fame, Colorado Hall of Fame. You're definitely in the Rancho Hall of Fame. You're such a great local guy to have here in Las Vegas. We learned so much. I keep thinking about this guy who's my Merrill Lynch advisor, who from Texas, who Coach Mickler was.
Yeah, that's him.
I can't believe this guy. I'm still angry about that.
Me too. Absolutely.
You know what?
I never did send a copy of my signing bonus check, though.
Did you?
No, I did not.
You didn't do that?
No. I
Should
felt
we
like
do that? Should we do that on part 2? We'll do that live. We can like
can.
FedEx it from the
We should
the
send it to
den.
the school at least. Maybe they could frame it and put it in the gym or something.
Well, I don't like that. But see, you had the chip on your shoulder.
I did.
You succeeded, dude.
Thank you.
It's great meeting you.
You
It's such
too,
an
as well.
honor. Guys, these are the conversations that we have inside the den at FOX5 Studios. It's a pleasure to be in the huddle with a guy like Mike Pritchard. Make sure, listen, you can listen to this show as a podcast, like, subscribe wherever you want to go. And of course, we have more future deep, heartfelt conversations. Was this deep and heartfelt for you?
This was awesome. I did get a little emotional, I think.
Did you?
Yeah, I didn't get misty.
You didn't
But
get
I got a little emotional telling those stories. Though.
as a 17-year broadcaster, give me a grade. And you got to realize I don't have the Topafol.
Okay.
I didn't take any of that stuff to make me
Okay.
feel energy. What is
Well,
it called?
I was gonna give him. I was
Jojabafol?
gonna give him an
Jojabafol?
A. Toradol. I was gonna give you an
Toradol.
A until you messed that up. But no, I'll give you an A. I'll still give you an A.
See,
It was outstanding.
See, it's much better than I did in econ. I'll tell you that. I never got an A in econ. Mike Pritchard, the great Mike Pritchard. Make sure you check out his show at Veasan, a great local guy here in Las Vegas. We have more great conversations like this happening inside the Vegas Huddle. Make sure you stay tuned to the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network, and make sure you download, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, that's it from inside the Vegas Huddle.